Hello, everybody. This is another prerequisite lesson leading towards those 6-point parallelogram proofs. This lesson, I can prove segments parallel given alternate interior angles by carving out the angle to find the parallel lines and the transversal. So we're going to start with a couple that we did earlier this year. Then we'll do ones that are more suited for what we're going to be doing in this unit. If I give you that angle M is congruent to angle E, you need to recognize that these are alternate interior angles. Once you recognize that, we need to find the parallel lines. To do that, we're going to carve out the angle. And once I carve out the angle, I'm basically looking for my Z. There's my Z. Once I have my Z, I can very clearly see my parallel lines and my transversal. These are my parallel lines. So to put that into the proof, statements, reasons, angle M is congruent to angle E, given, and then I can state that MY is parallel to RE, and the reason is parallel lines cut by a transversal create congruent alternate interior angles. When you're given two angles are congruent, specifically angles that are alternate interior angles, you want to conclude that lines are parallel, and to find those parallel lines, carve that angle out, and then as you do that, you'll find your Z, and whatever the parallel lines are in that Z are your parallel lines. I'm not going to write out all of them. Number 2, S and A. So I'm going to carve out A, and then I'm going to kind of continue through. These are my parallel lines. Number 3, S and B. I'm going to carve this out. I see my Z. Those are my parallel lines. Now we kind of get to what we're going to see more in this unit. EAG, FCG. So EAG, FCG. So I need to find my Z, and in order to do that, I'm going to carve these angles out. So this angle is made up of this and this. So I continue until I see my Z. I see my Z. Those are my parallel lines. So I'll write this one out. I'm not going to write them all out. In fact, I don't even know if I need to write this one out, but I will. Statements, reasons, angle EAG is congruent to angle FCG, given. Since I'm given alternate interior angles, I conclude that my lines are parallel. And again, it may be hard for you to see. Is it AD and BC, or maybe it would be this one and this one? So in order to determine that, you carve out the angle. That leads you to your Z, which leads you to your parallel lines. DA is parallel to CB. Parallel lines cut by a transversal create congruent alternate interior angles. Again, this is just a mini proof within a bigger proof. ASH, KCY. Well, carve out this angle. Once I carve it out, I see my Z. Those are my parallel lines. Last one, EAF, GCH. Carve out my angle. When I carve out my angle, I see my Z. Once I have my Z, I have my parallel lines. So that's it. When you're given that angles are congruent, specifically look to see if they're alternate interior angles. If they are, then you need to find your parallel lines by carving out the angles and finding your Z. Once you have your Z, you have your parallel lines. This is going to be an important component within the bigger problem, so make sure you're able to do it. Goodbye.